Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of HeartCore, the Human Design Podcast. We have Celestina on the other side of the world and line.
Ayo.
And today we're going to be talking about projectors and specifically regarding struggling to find purpose and how to embrace waiting as a projector. So these are the two main focal points because there's just a lot of rumors but also a lot of just misunderstandings when it comes to waiting as a projector.
I don't know what that feels like as a manifestor, so I'm really excited for you to touch on this both from like a knowledge perspective as well as a personal perspective, and to kind of just delve into like different gender roles or assumed gender roles around being a projector as well. So let's learn some things.
But you've had clients, no, that were projectors. Have you had clients that were projectors? Because I find that interesting that I attract a lot of projectors. Maybe it's the same with you, that you attract a lot of a specific type.
I've spoken to many a manifestor. I've spoken, I think, to 2 reflectors, and this is like within the work that I've done, like within dietitians, right? More than a handful, no, at least 15 or 20 projectors, obviously more manifesting generators and generators, but just like statistically, there would be more of them. But yeah, no, I've worked with at least 3 projectors, and the waiting, I think, is extremely challenging, right? But I think rephrasing it, because yes, waiting is important, but also asking for the invite, right? Like if you have something that you want to share, not just being a recluse and being like sitting there waiting, God, please, I hope they ask me, I hope they ask me, I hope they ask me, right? But like if you really want to share something, be like, hey, like would you be open to me sharing about this? Dude, game changer. And I've seen it work really well in business, right? And having that as a tool in your tool belt as a projector. I think in dating or in relationships, it can be different, right? So I'm excited to see what knowledge you can shed upon us from that POV.
Yes, you've touched on the major point here that waiting is a big challenge for many projectors out there. That the first time that they hear that, they are often feeling a bit caged, or they feel like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? I'm just going to sit around waiting for whichever invitation to come. But when you do that, it's not about sitting at home just expecting someone to knock at your door and inviting you to do something. That is not going to happen. You have to show yourself. You have to go out there and just do what you're passionate about. And you also, a very, very important part of this is that you take care of yourself, that you really hone in on that self-love, do your practices, whichever they may be for you. They're going to vary widely from projector to projector, from person to person, just in general. Some people need to be more active, others need to be a bit more relaxed and calm in their approach. Some people need to be more structured in their routines, others just go with the flow. So there are many, many different ways, but the important thing is that you fill your own cup first. And when you do that, you start to radiate from within, and you're going to start to attract invitations. So in my opinion, even before going out there and showing yourself, it is really important that you fill your own cup first, because then you will have a certain frequency, a certain energy about you that will attract people to you, and you will attract these invitations. How do you feel?
Dude, I think doing the inner work is important in every aspect of life, right? You have to be secure and confident in who you are, and in situations or environments that you feel comfortable in, to be able to do the things and make the decisions that are right for you, right? And I know people are always like, oh my God, put yourself outside your comfort zone. Also, like, if that means not leaving your house ever, it's going to be really hard to like find other people who have similar interests, right? It'll be probably challenging to just make friends at that point, let's be real. But I think there's something true about doing things that you enjoy and doing things for you, and then making decisions based off of like those environments that you're already happy in, right? So finding that place and that space that you're really feeling good and confident in, doing the inner work, and then having all of that to follow. So, dude, 100%.
And another really good point here, because you're talking about being in the right place. And especially if you're a mental projector, because these are definitely projectors, or definitely projectors that don't have the G center defined. However, if you are any type that doesn't have the G center defined, your place where you are becomes even more important. So the more open you are in your chart, it becomes very important who you surround yourself with, where you are. And if you have the G center undefined, this is just a very strong hint of, hey, you need to be at the right place, of course, also at the right time, but definitely in the right place. So yes, whenever you show yourself as a projector, try to show yourself in a way that you've been invited into the space. So for example, for me, I was invited into showing myself on Inside Timer. They reached out to me. I mean, they probably reached out to a lot of different people, but they reached out to me and asked if I wanted to be a teacher on their platform. This was for me my invitation. I felt really good about it. I love that platform. So I started to host weekly lives on that platform. And I'm showing myself. I'm not every week waiting for an invitation to show myself, but this initial invitation was basically the start of my relationship with Inside Timer. And you kind of really, I think this is a very important part, to take every invitation as a start of a relationship. And it doesn't have to be romantic, it can be business, it can be any kind of relationship. But every invitation can lead to a relationship. And to really listen to your inner authority once you have received the invitation, if this is the correct invitation to you, because just because you've received an invitation doesn't mean that you need to take it. And this is another often misunderstood part of projectors, that first of all, they think that they need to just be waiting around for invitations. That is not the case, and Celestina mentioned this already, that one way around that is to ask questions. Projectors are here to ask questions. So asking for not an invitation per se, but you're basically asking for an in. So you can ask a question of, would you like me to share a little bit about this topic? Or are you interested in doing X, Y, Z? Things like this. It is a way to kind of open the door and then see how the other person reacts to it, and then wait for the invitation from the other person. So it is not you demanding it, you're not pushing it, but it's just a question. And if the other person is ready, great. If not, it wasn't the right time, it wasn't the right person, it wasn't the right place. So you just move on. But if you yourself receive invitations, it also doesn't mean that you have to take every single invitation. You can choose, of course, which invitation is right for you, which feels right to you. And this will be very different for each projector out there. So some projectors are emotional projectors, and they need time. They need to wait for clarity. So they can't just have clarity in the now. And I just recently listened to something regarding the emotional solar plexus from Ra Uruhu, and he was also talking about the 2027 again, and how the emotional solar plexus is going to become an awareness center. So it's moving away from the motor center and becoming an awareness center. The channel 1949 is going to break down. So there's going to be a breakdown of the wave, a breakdown of the motor center. So the reason why I'm mentioning that is because kids after 2027, when they're born, the clarity can be in the now. So at the moment, there is no clarity in the now in the emotional solar plexus. But for kids born after 2027, this can happen. So just something to keep in mind. But yeah, if you're a splenic or a splenic projector, then your clarity is, or your intuition is very, very fast. It's a split-second intuition, and you will very quickly know what is right for you. So many different ways of deciphering whether the decision or the invitation is or is not correct for you.
What I'm hearing is plan procreations wisely over the next couple of years. Okay, but like actually though, I think that that's so helpful and provides so much more clarity, right? So thinking about every interaction that you have as a relationship that you're forming that either you want to be in or you don't want to be in, running that through whatever your authority is, and then coming out hopefully with the decision that you feel amazing with in a relationship, quote unquote, that you feel really good about on the other side. Do you have any practical examples of this? I have a couple, but do you have a couple or one?
Feel free to share yours first.
But I invited you.
I will take it after.
Yeah, so actually, I'm pretty sure our friendship started like this. Are you going to use that? So I don't know if we've mentioned it on here, but I think you and I like met on Clubhouse. I don't know when you guys remember when Clubhouse was popping off like 3 years ago. Oh my God, wild, first of all. Second, I think we were in some type of like hippy dippy room, as we probably would have. And I was just like going through the list of people who were in there. I was like, this chick looks cool. So I like messaged you on Instagram because you couldn't like chat through Clubhouse. You had to like go to their Instagram profile and like message them through there. And I was like, hey, like we were just in that Clubhouse room together. I'm Celestina. What's up? Hey. And I don't think it was till like months later, maybe even like a year later, that we both realized that we were both into human design together. And then I think we like connected some other way. But yeah, if you can think back to that moment, what was the initial heart pull to message me back? Because you could have easily ignored it.
That's true. And that's a very tough question because I don't actually remember that moment. I'm sorry.
Wow. She didn't know I was going to change her life. It's fine. It's fine.
And after that, we even planned a retreat together without ever having met. This is what modern technology can do. You can plan retreats, you can FaceTime, you can get to know each other. And we had I know that I had a really good feeling about you from the get-go. I knew that I could trust you. I knew that I would connect with you. I don't know why or how, but it was just, yeah. Maybe it was
followed a heart pull. There you go. Cool. Yeah, so that's one example. But again, I've only been able to witness it from the outside, right? So I don't know what that feels like for you. I've also seen, which we could probably touch on separately, is a projector make a move sans invitation. And I'm going to hold off on that example because I want to hear like a practical example of what you've talked about already, not a misaligned example.
Yeah, so I have one from a client of mine. And she is a projector, and she was in a job position that didn't really satisfy her entirely. She was very successful in it, but she didn't feel very satisfied in it. And she also started to feel more and more resistance. And at some point, she was let go. But I feel like she really called this to her. Like the company was reducing their employees, so she was very good at what she was doing, and she was just let go because I think 80% of the company was let go. So it was a really extreme shift within the company, and I really think that she called it to her because it was just not the right fit for her. And she is very, very good in keeping up her practices for herself, keeping up her self-care routines. She also started to implement more and more of the tools that Opportunity provided, and I could really see a big shift in her. So she was just improving and making leaps into the right direction. So I really think that this was the time for her to find a better direction for her. And because she was let go, she was able to have a very solid income for, I think it was 6 months, maybe 9 months, but it was a very long time that she was supported. And because of that, she was able to let go even more. So she was able to really step more into her self-care practice. And this is a very difficult moment for a projector because I can talk about it from a projector perspective because I've been there. And there's a moment where you keep putting yourself out there in some way, shape, or form, but you get so much pressure from the outside world of them telling you, okay, you really need to make a decision now. You really need to start to think about getting a real job or doing this and this and this to gain money. And she had quite a few kids. So you have additional pressure on your shoulders of taking care of your children and being able to support them and things like that. But she didn't let herself be thrown by that. So she stuck to waiting for an invitation. She did put her CV out there, but she didn't actively respond to jobs. So she just put her CV out there. She put herself out there in many different situations. And eventually some old colleague of hers spoke to her and offered her a job. And this was right at the end of, I think it was maybe 2 weeks out before she was done with her monthly salary. And she was able to just start the job right bang at the beginning of the end of her previous salary. So this can be extremely challenging and a lot of pressure. I compare it to going through the Corona situation where you had so much pressure on your shoulders to get vaccinated. And if you didn't do that, you started to have less and less options available to you. Eventually, I think people that weren't vaccinated were only allowed to go to the pharmacy, to the bakery, but they couldn't use buses or public transport, at least in Germany. They couldn't go to the movies, they couldn't do this, they couldn't do that. There was so much limitation on you. And in my opinion, this feeling that I had during Corona was a very similar feeling that I felt when I was in the situation of my client where I was struggling to gain a financial income. And I also received these comments, you really need to consider getting a real job, quote unquote. And at some point I received the offer to go to Saudi Arabia. And this was very, very different to what Opportunity does in certain aspects. On the other hand, I did choose to take that job because it was in the tourism sector. And because Opportunity is going to go more and more into the retreat space, to me this was so beneficial because I was able to gain even more insights on which quality standard I want to offer for the retreats and what I need to look at for the hotels that I'm choosing, and the safety and the health aspects of choosing the right hotel, etc. So there's a lot that I learned from it. I learned a lot about the culture, the developmental aspects of this country in general. So it was extremely beneficial, although I knew that environment-wise, it is not the right environment for me. And I do have to say, it wasn't. I can feel it in so many different ways that this environment, from the temperature and from the dryness of the place. So the temperature is not actually the big issue, but the fact that I'm a wet kitchen, and this was literally a city in the middle of the desert. So I could feel in my throat when I was walking outside at 45 degrees heat, in the dryness, like a fan blowing in my face, like a hair dryer. it didn't feel right. But I knew that with my heart, I made this decision with my heart, and I made this decision because I wanted to bring opportunity to the next level, which I'm now finally able to do. I took that decision to do that, and it was absolutely 100% the right decision for me. But this opportunity really came again at the last minute. So for me, yes, I can definitely say that waiting for the invitation, learning patience, learning patience is the key for projectors, but it's actually the key for every single type, even manifestors.
I'm dropped. Boom. I think you summed that up perfectly. And yes, I can relate. We'll do a whole different episode on things manifestors should and should not be doing. Yes, even to like, as impatient as I am sometimes, but like even to wait for the right download, right? And like act upon that. Yes. We all have to be patient in our own very different ways.
And would you like to share your not self example so that we're moving into that realm?
Yes, I don't know if it's a not self example because I wasn't in this person's head. But these two people that I know dated for like our youngish childhood, right? So like 8th grade into high school, broke up, went their separate ways, and then got back together like towards the end of high school, and then on and off throughout their 20s, and then like got really serious, right? So I only know one of their designs. The female in the female-male partnership is a projector. And again, I don't know more details than that. However, this person proposed, like got down on one knee, kind of proposed. So the projector proposed to, I don't know what her partner's design is, but I think it was taken well, but her partner was definitely taken aback by what happened. And not that they weren't discussing it, like prior to, I just think that he probably had societal norms in mind, right? Where like the dude does this, and we'll talk about that in a second as well. But also, I wonder how much of that was he was just really thrown because the energy he was getting from a projector didn't align with the energy one would typically get from an aligned projector, right? I'm not saying, I don't know if this person's aligned or not. I'm just saying, if you're making decisions with your strategy and authority, you're waiting for the invite, not necessarily getting down on one knee and making the proposition, not knowing how it's going to be taken on the other end. So yeah, I don't know if it's the most accurate example, but I just thought it was really interesting because I think it came as a surprise to the other person when all of this happened. So yeah, you can break this down.
Yeah, this is a really interesting example that you had shared with me a few weeks ago, or something around those lines. And I also thought this was very interesting. And now that you're saying that you don't know his design, so one option is that he's also a projector. And in that case, it's a projector can ask a projector. So you can invite a projector because at some point one of you has to invite the other. One has to do it. Otherwise, there's never any kind of relationship with projectors. And this is, according to Ra, it is the healthiest form of a relationship when two non-sacral beings are together. So what human design does, or what we inherently do, is that we always try to find the other half. So we often choose someone that is very different to us, that is not equal to our design. We're not attracted per se to the same design, or like having literally the same design is very rare in the world, but even having the same type. Because when you have two projectors coming together, a lot of times the sacral is not defined, or when the sacral is not defined, I don't know the statistics of how often it would or would not be defined, but when their sacral is not defined, neither of the projectors has the sexual energy within them. So a projector takes in the sacral energy of another person, same as a manifestor or a reflector. So when you don't have the sacral defined, you take in the energy of the other person and you amplify it. In this case, the sacral center, and this is also connected to sexual energy. So some generators and manifesting generators are happy about that. Others prefer to have another sacral being to have their own sexual energy instead of just taking in the energy of them and then amplifying it. But theoretically, according to Ra, the healthiest relationship is between two non-sacral beings. So it is, I think, any kind of relationship can be positive or negative, can be supportive or destructive. It is more about how aware are you of your own energy and how much are you ready to grow and evolve. So if you are constantly pointing the finger at the other person and saying it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault, and never looking at yourself and wanting to change something about yourself, no matter which type you're with, it's gonna end up badly. So in this case, long story short, it could be that he's also a projector. And this is a very big challenge often with projector men. So when you are a projector man, you have been conditioned, or most likely you've been conditioned to hear about making the first move. You as a man have to make the first move. But if you're a projector man, it's not actually like that. And the interesting thing is that I've just listened to another true crime podcast or a true crime episode, and this was about a guy who it plays in Australia, actually. So this guy was known in Australia as a player, and he would always go around to bars and clubs and pick up women. And he was very well known by the bar and club owners there. I'm not sure where exactly in Australia that was, if it was Sydney or Melbourne or any other place, but he was very well known there. And he at some point picked up another woman, but this woman fell off his balcony. So she died. And
Hold up, the true crime person in me fell? Winky face? Fell off his balcony?
Yes. So that is the question. Exactly. And he is someone who has always been taken care of by his parents. He had an apartment that was sponsored by his parents. He never really worked very hard in his life, as up to this point at least. And so he had a very spoiled mentality. And because he looked semi-okay, like some people would say he was good looking, other people would say he's just normal, others would not even find him attractive at all. So you can make up your own mind about that. I don't have the name in my head right now, but yeah, you will find it if you look for these specific things of woman falling off the balcony and man accused of murder or something like this in Australia. He probably shows up. So in this case, he took her home, and there's an audio recording of the whole thing. So you can hear them getting into arguments, and it's not really arguments. At the beginning, it's not really bad arguments, but they're like poking each other verbally, and they also slept together at that point. And then it just kind of gets worse and worse. So the situation becomes worse and worse. At some point, it even sounds like he's strangling her. And then he locks her out onto the balcony. He took her phone, and she didn't want to leave without her phone. And instead of locking her out in front of the apartment, he locks her out onto the balcony. And she was really scared for her life at that point. So what is thought to have happened is that she climbed over the railing. And when she climbed over, the people 2 floors down, they heard that there was an argument, and they then looked up and they could see her, and they tried to convince her to go back over the balcony. They were very, very, very drunk. They drank moonshine. So he had made moonshine. So if you don't know moonshine, it's a very nasty alcohol because there is no control over how much alcohol is actually contained in the moonshine, which type of alcohol was used, and it can be extremely dangerous. So in this case, she was very, very drunk, and when she tried to climb back over the balcony, at least this is how the people below were describing it, she slipped and fell. So yes, while this may have been an accident where she slipped and fell, the whole situation of locking her onto the balcony and her being petrified and scared for her life caused her to do this. So he has fault in this aspect. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is because he was on a bodybuilder forum, and he kept sharing and saying, okay, you have to make the first move. You have to, like, these player moves of insulting a woman in some way, but also giving a compliment. So that's kind of the push and pull thing. And yeah, it may work in some situations. I don't think it's a good way to ever pick up anyone or ever play with someone's mind. But I do know that these things are around, and I do also know that they work quite a bit of time. But for a projector man, making the first move is not the right way to go. A projector man should wait for invitation. And the more that, again, you take care of yourself, you fill up your own cup, you are going to radiate a certain type of energy. And you don't even have to worry about going up to someone. People, women or men, whichever you're into, they will come up to you, or the other, all forms of gender, apologies. But yeah, whatever you're into, they will come up to you and they will start to talk to you and invite you into whatever it is that you want to do. And while we're on that subject, if you are an emotional projector, do not fall for it for the first night. Just really try to play hard to get and say something along those lines of, let me get back to you on that. So yeah, that is very important for an emotional being. Just wait.
I love that.
Even if it's just for one night, just wait.
So good. Quick update. I looked up these 2 people's profiles who I was talking about before. This is the most accurate I think I can get. I have a 2-4 splenic projector and a 5-1 emotional manifesting generator. Potentially. That's as accurate as I can get with the amount of information that I have.
This would be very interesting to keep observing that, because an emotional manifesting generator needs to wait for clarity. So even though the projector invited the emotional manifesting generator into a marriage, essentially, the emotional manifesting generator was pretty much forced to say yes right away. So they may have had this in their mind before, and they may have thought about this. And if they have, this is great. If they've had the idea of proposing themselves and they've thought about what their answer would be, or they would hope the other person's answer would be, then they already may have had clarity. But if they didn't, this could lead to quite a few challenges. However, we also have to acknowledge the way that they entered into the relationship in the first place.
Introduction from yours truly.
Okay. So yeah, in that case, it is still the way. So they were introduced by you.
Yes.
But the question is, how did they enter into the relationship? So it's already a good entry point, as in it's a great way for a projector to get into a relationship or a friendship with someone.
Yeah.
But then how does it evolve into a relationship? Who asked whom into the relationship? How did that would be interesting as well to understand.
I was there, but it was also 20 years ago and I don't remember.
No problem. It's all good. But yeah, it's also about just the way that it started is great because it's a neutral place for both a projector and a manifesting generator.
Yeah.
But then how did it evolve? So did the projector again kind of push themselves and be like, okay, can we finally be in a relationship? Like, so this would not be the healthy way. If the manifesting generator at some point would say, hey, I've had enough time, I've gained clarity, I know that I want to be with you, and then they enter into a relationship, this would be a healthy way to do it.
Great questions.
So, as you can see, we're never talking about gender per se. We're talking about types and also profiles and inner intuitions or inner authorities. But I do still think that gender, or not gender, but the masculine and feminine energies play a big role in all of this as well. A healthy masculine projector will just, as I said, have this energy about them, and they will attract these invitations. And they will also not have an issue with this because they will understand their strengths as a healthy masculine as well. So there also always needs to be a balance between the masculine and the feminine energy within each and every one of us. And it's just a very fine line to navigate, as with a lot of things in life. But I think that there is a way to be a healthy masculine projector and also a healthy feminine projector as well. But we need to always bring this aspect into our minds as well. I think there is a very big disbalance in the genders at the moment in general. There's a divide that is becoming, in my opinion, in some areas bigger, in some areas smaller. But this whole gender conversation and all this, also this push and pull that is happening between the genders at the moment, it's not about that. It is about stepping into your own personal strength and seeing the individual for their own personal strengths. And I wish that this would be a conversation that is going to happen more and more, instead of saying, okay, I need to have, I don't know. It's a complicated conversation. But I just wanted to point that out, that at the moment we're, regardless of being a man or a female projector, these are the ways that you need to learn patience. And if you're ready for it, you may not be ready for it.
So well said. Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing when it comes to human design, right? Like, you could stumble upon our podcast tomorrow or today. Maybe you stumbled upon it today and you were like, this sounds cool. I'm not ready for it. That's fine. You don't have to be ready for it today. As long as you know you have this in your back pocket, if you're ready for it in 2 years from now, dope. Come back, listen, find another resource you may like and vibe with better if that works too. But I think that's the cool part about all of this, right? Like, it's there when you need it, and if you want to dive into it deeper.
And that's, well, for me, this would be the perfect end to this episode. If you have anything else to share regarding this.
No, I think this was beautiful, and I kind of loved when you don't have all of your notes super hardcore set, because sometimes you just go off on fantastic tangents, and I just like seeing your mental processes go. Just trust yourself, you know?
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, I was again very unprepared for this episode. Thank you everyone for listening. It was a pleasure being here again.
Until next week, guys. Ciao.
Bye.